So it's been roughly about 3 months since Francis Ngannou got up and left the UFC. He didn't sign a new contract with them and decided to go elsewhere and pursue other things. And at the time, it felt as if a lot of people were behind him. They felt like he was good. He stood up to his bosses, which we all would like to do, I'm sure, in your job. And I think with Francis Ngannou, I think what he did was commended. It was seen as him. He spoke about how he needs to be respected. He doesn't want to be treated like almost like a slave, almost, and he's free and all this kind of stuff. However, looking back now, has Francis Ngannou, it's been 3 months now, has he made a mistake? Because Francis Ngannou is, or was, the heavyweight champion in the UFC. There is no better title, I think, for a heavyweight to have, really. You are seen as the baddest man on the planet, and 36 years of age is only so much I think you have left, and I don't know, I feel as if Francis Ngannou may have made a real error here, because his idea was to go out of the UFC, maybe jump into boxing, maybe do MMA, switch back and forth. And I've often felt this about some of the people in mixed martial arts. Dana White, I've often thought this about. And I think Dana White's incredible. But sometimes I think when people talk about entering boxing and doing what they did, I mean, Dana White's a different level. Because when I say Dana White obviously had this idea of, getting different fighters under his belts and fixing boxing, make sure the fights happen, all this kind of stuff. Which sounds great, but there's some sharks in boxing. And Dana White, don't get twisted, he's one of the best promoters I think there is. But, I think it's sometimes you've got to adapt your game a little bit. I don't think that approach would have worked. And I think maybe you're seeing that. Maybe I think he will come to boxing. I think he'll do a lot of good things. But he was talking about, trying to get Joshua Wilder and Fury locked up under one promotion. So if they have any of them lost, you can have them fight each other. And I think it sounds nice. But realistically, that would cost a lot of money for the one single promotion to get all three megastars. So I think there's just a lot of misconceptions, and I think this is where I feel there are differences in mixed martial arts, specifically in the UFC and within boxing. But that's another thing. With Francis Ngannou, I think he played his hand. He almost said, "All right, you're not going to pay me what I want. You're not going to do this and that. I'm going to go out. I'm going to go on boxing. I'm going to fight in different MMA promotions and show you, I'm free now." That was his whole angle. However, and I ask anybody this, is there any rumours about Francis Ngannou fighting? Are there any fights being negotiated? Has he signed a contract with any boxing promoters? He hasn't spoke, from what we hear, with Eddie Hearn. Has he done that? Has he spoke with Bob Arum? Has he spoke with, Al Heyman? We're not hearing anything, and I think we are potentially seeing the start of what I believe is an era for Francis Ngannou, because as well, he has a manager who was a friend of his, but I think he's let him go, from what I hear anyway. And I think what you're sort of seeing is he's now taking control himself, and I don't know, he doesn't have a team around him, Ngannou. It's just him, it feels like, and I think he's making an error, and I think now, in hindsight, John Jones doing what he did, beating Cyril Gane with ease, heavyweight bout, him potentially fighting Miocic, you've now got a possibility of John Jones almost matching what Francis did at heavyweight, having one title defense. Let's not get twisted. Ngannou won the belt, and there were so many things about him. They're shooting Fast and Furious movie at one point, and then also them making an interim belt. It felt as if it was just a real drama with him as heavyweight champion. As great and as bad as he is, I can't question Ngannou as a fighter, but I do question his logic and what he was doing here, because ultimately, yeah, alright, you could go to different promotions, but the best fighters are in the UFC, and I don't go Ngannou completely, because where he came from, you understand he doesn't want to be controlled, and I get that, but you're a fighter, man. The UFC has the best fighters. You had Cyril Gane there, you had Miocic there, you had John Jones coming to heavyweight. Ngannou and Jones was the fight. The same way I did a video about Joshua Wilder, it's the same thing. Ngannou and John Jones was the fight to make in the UFC heavyweight division. Everybody wanted it, and we never got it. And, you know, you can argue who you think would have won that fight, but ultimately we won't want to see it. We never got it. Ngannou would have made a career high payday off that, I am sure. They offered him more than any UFC heavyweight has ever got, and he still rejected it. And you want to talk about going into boxing? Like I said, I think Conor McGregor has almost got a lot of people delusional of what they can and can't do. First of all, you want to talk about Conor McGregor. First of all, when he made that fight with Floyd, he talked about potentially making that fight without the UFC, and Dana White told him good luck. And we remember that fight got made with him working with the UFC. That was not a fight separate to the UFC. You can't, I don't think, make these mega fights. It just takes so long, and it was so many drawn out negotiations and all sorts of Floyd offering so much and Dana White offering so like it's just there was so much going on with that. And then when we finally got it, it was a big show and everything. But so I think people forget, like, you can't. I don't think just go out of the UFC and make mega fights. I think that's just it. No, Conor McGregor did that with the help of the UFC. So that's one thing. Second of all, this is where I do not understand the logic of some fighters. There is no Conor McGregor. You can argue about what you think about him or what. He is the biggest star MMA has ever had. He put the UFC on the map. He got so many people eyeballs on the UFC. Francis Ngannou did not do that. As great as Ngannou is, nobody really paid attention to him in that way. He was seen as a bad man. He got these movie deals and all that, but it was his image, which is, I think, what should be marketed better. But also, I think Ngannou did a poor job, really, of trying to almost work with the UFC to try and make these things happen. I look at it. He's talking about fighting Joshua Wilder and Fury. He did an interview with Errol Hawani 3 months ago, where he was talking, when they asked him, like, what boxing fights do you want, and he was talking about the Joshuas, the Wilders, the Furies. First of all, let's just get this straight. Ngannou's a big name. He's not bigger than Anthony Joshua. He's not bigger than Tyson Fury. And you can even argue, is he bigger than Deontay Wilder? Those guys would rather fight each other, and I'm convinced of it. Yeah, he's bringing in Alexander Usyk, but ultimately, again, nobody really cares to see Ngannou against a Joshua Wilder. I'm telling a lie, actually. Him and Wilder would be quite interesting, but nobody cares about him versus Fury because we all know what would happen. It's like, it's just somewhat frustrating because this guy had everything there. He was UFC heavyweight champion. He had the image. Everything was there for him, and I'll be honest, I think he let it slip massively. And I do think you don't hear any rumours of him fighting. We don't hear about him signing with the PFL yet or doing anything. If you're gonna leave the UFC, what the hell was the point of going to PFL? Again, I understand this single crossing over from MMA to boxing and boxing to MMA, but ultimately you got to understand it is not that easy. Conor did not do that with ease. It took a long time, and I think he's wasting a lot of potential what he had. You could have fought John Jones if you believe in yourself. Knock him out. I know it's a hard ask, but you could have done it. You imagine you knocked John Jones out. They were talking about him maybe fighting Stipe. Imagine if you beat Jones, you beat Stipe. Who can question you? Then I think you could go to Eddie Hearn or somebody and say, okay, let me fight Joshua, fight this guy, fight that guy, because you got stuff on your side. Everybody be talking about you. The problem is he almost banked on himself almost too early. It's almost as if it's like you hang your resignation into a job with thinking you're going to get another job, and that isn't even confirmed yet. It's nonsensical to me, and I think he made a mistake here on Ngannou, and I do believe he's going to pay for this. Will we see him in the UFC? I don't know. I hope we do, because he's an unbelievable fighter, but I just think he made a bit of a lapse of error, in my opinion. Lapse of judgment, even. I think we're seeing a little bit here of where I feel that you do need people behind you, business people, to advise you on this. I don't think anybody felt him turning down a mega offer from the UFC and fighting John Jones and going and doing essentially nothing right now. I'm not saying, I know he's probably got stuff in the works, but he isn't fighting Joshua Wilder. They're going to fight each other from what we hear. Fury is supposedly fighting Andy Ruiz. Who's he going to fight in boxing? You want to fight Dylan White? But he isn't talking about that. So there's nobody in boxing. If it's MMA, what, you're going to go to PFL? There's nobody. The best heavyweights are in the UFC. I didn't understand this logic from what he did here. I think he jumped the gun, in my opinion, way too early, and should have had another few fights, and then I think you could have seen him potentially try and do this. But I think he made a mistake in this one, and I think he's kind of not, I won't say burnt his bridges with the UFC, but he kind of is very content with walking away. And Dana White he isn't insulting towards Ngannou, but you can kind of see there's a bit of beef there. There isn't really much mutual respect, I feel, between the two of them. And I think what you've seen with Francis Ngannou is somebody who I think he kind of just got too excited. I understand wanting to be that guy who wants to take a stand against the UFC. So many people support him as well, which I understand this, right? But what's that got you? You at the moment, I know people might say, "Oh, give it time," but there's no rumors of him fighting anybody. There's nothing there, and I do think, you know, maybe you want to fight some lower boxers, but I just don't really see that working out, and I just don't really see the logic in what he has done here. And again, I think Ngannou's a smart guy, but I just think he kind of bet on himself way more than it actually. I think he almost overestimated his worth, is what I'm saying. I think with Ngannou, I don't know if he realizes, but how hard they are to make these big fights in boxing. You know, like I said, McGregor Mayweather took a long time. Hell, Mayweather Pacquiao took damn near 6 years. Spence and Crawford is taking the Lord knows how long. Tank and Garcia the same. Canelo Golovkin took ages. We are now supposedly about to get Joshua Wilder after 4 years of this. It takes time, these fights. It's not even 4, I think it's even longer than that. You know, it just takes a long time. I don't think you realise it. In the UFC, under one promotion, you want to fight, boom, that's what it is. It's easy to make these fights. It's not easy in boxing. I don't think he realises how hard it's gonna work. And I just think, if I was him, you're right, maybe you want to wait out. I don't want to advise him, but I just think, I don't want to act like I know more than him. But obviously, he has an idea, but I just think he got a little bit too excited, and I jumped the gun a little bit. If you just waited, you could have done all this. If you had just waited, in my opinion, if you created a bit more of a legacy in the UFC, but you didn't do that. You wanted to go fight these boxers straight away. I understand he wants to be a boxer, but to me, there's a way to do it, and I just don't think this was the correct way. And at the moment, I think he's suffering because there's no rumors of him fighting any superstar boxer, and I just feel he may learn the hard way. Maybe he turns this around and it's a good decision, but the more and more time is going on at the moment, 36, it doesn't really seem as if time's on his side, and it doesn't really seem like we'll get any close to him fighting in boxing or even fighting any other MMA promotion. And financially, will these guys pay him as much as the UFC did? I don't know. PFL got a lot of money, but I'm not really sure if that's really going to happen to him in Bellator. It just feels like he's almost wasting his career. And I don't think, for a guy who I think potentially could be the heavyweight GOAT, I don't think you want to do that. This guy came in and knocked people unconscious. He has that ability. He is exciting to watch. People love watching Francis Ngannou, but I think, again, he just went a bit too early with this. And I personally think he's going to pay the price. I don't think we see much movement. I haven't heard any rumours of him fighting anybody. There just seems to be just nothing at the moment. But maybe it's the quiet before the storm. Maybe this will be the norm, and people will realise. Again, Ngannou's a big name, but he's not, I feel, as big his name as people think he is, or how he thinks he is. He's a big name, but he's not Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor had everybody talking. You know, Conor McGregor was on his talk shows and Jimmy Kimmel and stuff like that. Had people who weren't even into MMA knew who he was. It's not really the same with Ngannou. Yeah, he's in movies and stuff, and he has maybe connections there, but there isn't much that I feel. There isn't just much there, I think, for Ngannou at the moment. And yeah, I hope he turns it around and does something, but at the moment it's looking a little bit bleak. But yeah, just my thoughts though. I feel Francis Ngannou has made a bit of an error, and I don't really think it's going to turn out well for him. But we'll see. I hope he does fight boxers if that's what he wants, or he wants to fight the likes of John Jones when he comes back. I think it'd be great. But again, it's like I said, it's almost as if somebody resigned from their job without hoping that there was something else there where it wasn't guaranteed. And yeah, error in my opinion. But yeah, just my thoughts on Francis's current situation. And yeah, until next time.